What's up YouTube? We just got new information about the Genshin 3.1 patch, and in today's video we're going to quickly go over the brand new weapon banner as well as the character event wish banner to talk about their value and if they're worth pulling for your primo. And as always, you guys know before we start, if you're not subscribed already, don't forget to subscribe. Check out the other social media, you guys know the drill, link in the description below. Let's get started. Starting off, we have CYNO, who is the brand new features 5-star characters, and alongside with him will be Sayu, Candice, and then Kuki. Starting off with CYNO, it is hard for us to judge his meta value right now since he is not available yet, and as always, the general recommendation is that I highly recommend you to wait a week, maybe even two before polling on him for the feature crafter to figure out his value and his meta position as well as if he is gonna be good or not. With that being said though, at the current moment in some early look, CYNO doesn't look exactly to be the next meta-defining character. He doesn't look exactly to be that strong. I think he'll be a average, mediocre kind of character, gonna be a alright electro DPS. So at the early moment, I'll give him a 2.5 out of 3 rating, which is slightly below average because I do think he has some gameplay issues such as long on field time, which make you vulnerable and therefore kind of tied to Zhongli. We did previously made a pre-release analysis about CYNO going over some of his early potential problems, so you can check that video out if you're interested in more about those perspectives. With that being said, alongside CYNO would be a Venti rerun, and in case you couldn't tell, I'm a Venti sim, as you can tell by the avatar at the bottom left. However, with that being said, I think Venti is a decently valuable character, not the most valuable characters nowadays since the Abyss are not dramatically favorable for him, but in general, I think Venti is a fine role, just not a high priority role. If you're a new player or even experienced player without a lot of the stronger characters, I will highly recommend trying to get those stronger character first. Those are character like maybe Kazu, maybe Yelan, depending on what kind of character you're looking for and depending on where your account status is. However, once you have all of those strong characters available, I would suggest trying to pick up a Venti just for the use cases where he does work. While Venti doesn't always work in every single content, whenever he does work, he often just straight up destroy the content to the point where it's not unfair to call him straight up a cheat code for those specific content. And that's the specific reason why MiHoYo has to change the Abyss around Venti because he's so powerful, to the point where we kind of classify content as either Ventiable content where he just absolutely demolished the entire content, or not Ventiable content where he just okay. Keep in mind that as Venti is still a Anemo character, he can still carry Viridian Descent, which allow you to shred 40% elemental resistance on top of his 15 energy refund for the corresponding element infused with his elemental burst. So he definitely has some use cases even in non-Ventiable content, but for Ventiable content he just demolished. So I would suggest picking him up if you have spare Primo or you're just not looking for any specific other characters just for that cheat code. Alongside these two 5-star characters though will be the 4-stars, which are Sayu, Candice, and Kuki, which I think is not the greatest 4-stars character lineup. Nevertheless, some of these characters are actually so great, so let's quickly cover those really quickly. Starting off with Kuki, who definitely got significantly better after the release of Dandro. Kuki is a really strong electro healer in both Aggravate team or Hyper Bloom team, which are both new team with the release of Dandro. Sayu is a pretty decent Anemo healer, especially if you don't have Jean. If you have Jean, then Sayu and Jean are somewhat comparable. Usually Jean are better, but there are cases where Sayu could be better. For example, in a Aggravate team where you can use Sayu to trigger Swirl with full Elemental Mastery build. In general, Jean and Sayu are more or less interchangeable. They don't really make too big of a difference. And so Sayu is an okay character. Anemo are the best element in the game, but again, not necessarily the greatest 4-star we could have hoped that for. And then we have the brand new 4-star Candice, which from the early look doesn't look like to be the greatest characters ever. She's mostly a normal attack buffer from what we can see from the 3.1 livestream. However, we already have a normal attack buffer in the game with the name of Yunjin, so it's not necessary to get a second normal attack buffer probably. But the most important part that I want to call is that their constellation are not the greatest between these 3 characters. There are some decent constellation between the 3 characters, such as Kuki C1 increasing the AoE by 50%, allow you to trigger reaction more reliably. Constellation 2 increases duration, allow you to trigger more reaction, or even C4 that allow you to trigger more reaction by doing a second electro hit. And then likewise, Sayu has some okay constellation like C1 that kind of unlock the HP limit and allow you to heal and attack the opponent at the same time, which let you trigger Swirl and heal. But in general, I would think most of these constellations are not huge game changing that you have to have these constellation. Especially in the case of Cookie, running a C-tier Cookie honestly is completely fine. And so these constellations are not required. And then Candace constellation, well, we don't exactly know since she's not available in the game yet, but with our projection being that Candace is going to be a pretty meh characters, I don't imagine constellation will be game changing to make her a good character. And so overall, I would say that the constellation for the 4-star on this banner is not the most important. It would be nice to pick up your first copy if you don't have them, but I wouldn't strictly chase for constellation even if you're a veteran player and you're missing constellation on these characters. I imagine a lot of people might be missing constellation on these characters since they are pretty new. They're introduced in the second half of Inazuma, but nevertheless, I don't think it's that important to go for constellation on these characters at all. Moving on to the weapon banner, this is a really exciting weapon banner as it might be one of the best one we have gotten so far. However, as always, we don't really recommend pulling for weapon banner as they just don't have that much value. If you're a low spender, this might be considerable, but as always, please consult your financial advisor before spending money on a video game. Don't spend money that you cannot afford as weapon banner are quite expensive, especially with their pity. But with that being said, the current features weapon is going to be Elegy for the End, which is one of the super amazing weapon in the game, alongside would be the Staff of the Scarlet Sand. Starting off with Staff of the Scarlet Sand, this weapon is actually pretty good for a majority of the polearm user in the game. It has crit substat in addition to a passive that scale off elemental mastery. So if you're a polearm character that build elemental mastery and care about crit, this polearm is actually pretty decent, and conveniently for most of the major meta polearm characters, they all care about elemental mastery. The biggest beneficiary from this polearm, aside from the brand new 5-star character CYNO, would be character like Hu Tao, who really like elemental mastery thanks to her Vaporize playstyle. Xiangling, of course, again thanks to her Vaporize playstyle, but of course Rosaria as well thanks to her reverse melt playstyles. And then alongside Staff of the Scarlet Sand will be Elegy for the End, which is a really good supporting bow in the game and often will increase your overall team damage by a good amount. By the way, speaking of Elegy for the End, did you know that once upon a time I actually built a full-size Elegy for the End in real life? It was made with 3D print and it actually light up with RGB, which you can see on the screen, and you can check out the full video somewhere in the link in the description, probably, or in my channel. But yeah, overall, Elegy for the End have a lot of amazing users, Venti to Yolon to even supporting Embers, and overall, I think both of these weapons could see a lot of value in your account, and it's rare that we see two pretty good weapon in the weapon banner, and therefore making this weapon banner overall pretty good. But it doesn't just stop there. The 4-stars are actually quite amazing on this banner as well, everything but the new Claymore. Starting off strong with the 4-star on this banner is the Faf Bow as well as Faf Polearm. In general, Phonia series is one of the strongest weapon series in the entire game, as it's able to provide you with good amount of energy recharge as well as energy particle for your entire team. And conveniently, the Faf Polearm and the Faf Bow are the two stronger weapons between all the Faf series compared to something like the Faf Codex or Faf Claymore. Faf Bow is really good on character like Yelan as she need higher energy recharge requirement. Faf Polearm, one of the best Faf weapon in the entire game, usable on many of the major polearm support like Yunjin, Rosaria in the free seam, or even on your Xiangling if you're missing energy recharge requirement. Overall, just really strong. Both of these Faf weapons are the better one. The Lion Roar is a pretty strong sword and it's a really good stat stick for whenever you can utilize a passive and doesn't need another different weapon for like energy recharge. And notable user includes seeing Chose in something like Raiden National, where you can efficiently proc it passive, or another character like Kaching. And finally, we have the Cowless, which is Sacrificial Cowless, which is, to be honest, a pretty decent Cowless for Sucrose. Sucrose is the strongest Cowless user in the entire game, maybe even one of the strongest characters in the entire game, and Sacrificial Fragment is actually pretty good on Sucrose. It might not always be the best weapon compared to something like TTDS or even Hakushin Ring, but in general, Sacrificial Fragment is like a weapon that you can't really go wrong with, being able to get the EM substat on its weapon, as well as being able to benefit from its passive, resetting your elemental skill to help you group a little bit better, as well as generate a little bit more Anemo particle for Sucrose herself to cast her elemental burst easier. Overall, I think the Sacrificial Fragment could easily be a super amazing weapon for Sucrose, and being able to pick it up as well as potentially refine it, well, could be really strong. And then finally, we have the brand new Claymore, the Makahari Aquamarine. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. The brand new Claymore has a Elemental Mastery substat, and it has an effect that allows you to convert Elemental Mastery to bonus flat attack, in addition to also giving your teammates some of that attack as well. It's a pretty good weapon for Elemental Mastery scaling Claymore characters, but only if you kind of fully commit to Elemental Mastery. And at the current moment, I don't really think we have particularly any great user of this Claymore, but I can see this Claymore being used in the futures as we push for more and more danger reaction that dramatically favor Elemental Mastery. It's kind of an interesting supporting weapon as it's able to give your teammate attack. Could be good in the futures, maybe not at the current moment right now. Keep in mind that you have to build full Elemental Mastery in order for the passive to worthwhile, and there are always other 4-star Claymore that can dramatically help if you're looking for damage, such as Serpent Spine, which is one of the best Claymore in the entire game, or even Rain Slasher, which also give Elemental Mastery substat, but in addition to a damage % bonus substat. I can see a character like CYNO being able to benefit from this, where you build full Elemental Mastery and try to give your teammate a little bit of attack. But for the current moment, I would probably go for Fav Claymore, as again, energy recharge is just so important that I would heavily prefer to run something like Fav over this weapon to try to give my team a little bit more attack, when I could alternatively give my team a little bit more energy recharge. But with that being said, that is the 3.1 banner review for the first half of the Genshin Impact 3.1. Let me know what you think about them in the comment below. I think this is a pretty good weapon banner, but maybe a mediocre characters banner. But with that being said, as always, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.